We're jumping right in today with something I think, well, everyone grapples with sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That real power you get from not reacting, from getting a handle on your emotions. Just think about it, more peace, maybe better relationships, avoiding those moments you kick yourself for later, all from learning to navigate feelings.
It really is almost universal, isn't it? That feeling afterwards, thinking, why? Why did I let that get to me? Why did I let that pull me in?
Exactly.
So yeah, this exploration is definitely for anyone who's felt that wish they'd handled things differently when things got heated.
Totally.
Right.
But we're basing this on a really interesting chat between Ina and Evan from the Master of American English podcast channel, From Speak English.
Okay.
Now, their main goal is helping folks learn English through, meaningful talks, but their insights on managing reactions, on emotions, it just struck me as so fundamental for communication, sure, but just for life.
Yeah, what's great is how their conversation, even though it's aimed at language learning, kind of uncovers these really deep truths about emotional intelligence.
Right.
Their whole focus on understanding clearly, it maps perfectly onto understanding our own internal stuff,
Yeah.
Responding with clarity instead of just raw impulse.
So our mission here is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Pull out the useful bits from Ina and Evan, the actionable stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually master those moments when feelings, feel like they're running the show? How do we create that little bit of space between the trigger and the reaction?
Okay, sounds good. Where do they start?
Well, Ina and Evan kick things off by tackling a big misunderstanding, one that stops people even trying to manage emotions effectively.
You mean the myth that controlling emotions means you have to be like a robot, feeling nothing?
Exactly that, yeah. Ina uses this brilliant analogy, a pressure cooker.
Oh, I like that.
Right? If you just keep shoving feelings down, never letting off steam,
Yeah.
eventually, boom, it just explodes. Makes total sense.
That's a powerful image. Because suppression, it's not a strategy, is it? It just builds up and finds a way out, usually not in a good way.
And Evan even shares something personal about this. He said he used to think bottling it up was mature, responsible even.
Mm.
But then one day, over something tiny, he just snapped, completely lost it. And he realized, wait, this wasn't about that thing. It was weeks of pent-up stuff.
Wow, yeah. That really drives home the point, doesn't it? Real control isn't suppression. It's about processing things healthily.
Yes?
Like Ina says, it's about noticing the feeling, letting yourself feel it safely, constructively, then deciding how to respond consciously.
That's the core of it. And Evan adds to that, saying it's about giving emotions space, without letting them hijack the control.
Right. Being aware, but not being ruled by them.
Which leads perfectly into the next big idea, self-awareness. You got to know what's going on first.
Absolutely. Evan puts it so simply.
Yeah.
You can't control what you don't even realize is happening. Seems obvious, but we forget it all the time with emotions.
He uses another great analogy, trying to drive a car with no windshield.
Yeah.
You're just blind,
Yeah.
heading for a crash. And if you're not aware of your own emotional state, you're way more likely to react badly.
It makes sense. And Evan's example of snapping and then reflecting later, asking himself, okay, what was really going on there? Was I tired, overwhelmed? That's the process, isn't it? Checking in.
That's the crucial bit, yeah, the shift. Like Ina describes it, moving from being in the storm of thoughts and feelings to becoming the observer. That little step back, that's where you regain your power. You get back in the driver's seat.
It's subtle, but that shift in perspective is huge. Just observing creates that gap for thought before the automatic reaction kicks in.
Okay, so we're getting more aware. We know stuffing feelings down is bad news. What's next for mastering the moment? This idea of the pause, both Ina and stress this.
The pause. Yeah. Sounds almost too simple, maybe, but it's incredibly powerful. We really underestimate what a few seconds can do.
Ina mentions that, quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose.
Love that quote.
Right. That little gap. That's everything.
It really reminds you that you're not just hardwired to react instantly. There is a space, even if it feels tiny sometimes, where conscious choice can happen.
Think about Ina's example. Getting cut off in traffic.
Oh, yeah. Classic trigger.
Your gut reaction. Honk, get mad, maybe gesture, right?
Uh-huh.
But if you can just breathe, pause, 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You give yourself a chance to think, is this really worth my energy?
It's like a tiny adjustment, as Ina calls it, but it changes the whole trajectory. That pause lets the logical brain catch up to the emotional flash flood.
You're not denying the frustration, but you're stopping it from driving your actions immediately.
Exactly. And Evan says he uses that silent beat himself when he feels overwhelmed, says it's saved him from so many pointless arguments.
It's like building a little buffer zone before you speak or act.
Definitely. That intentional pause, it prevents so much reactive stuff you'd probably regret later. Gives you a moment to choose words, tone. Leads to better outcomes usually.
Okay, now this next bit is deep. Ina and Evan talk about how sometimes our big reactions, they're not really about now. They're echoes from the past.
Triggers. Yeah. Rooted in old stuff, often unhealed experiences.
This is such a vital piece of the puzzle. Our current reactions often connect back to things we haven't fully dealt with.
Evan's example is spot on. Like a harmless joke lands wrong, triggers this huge reaction, looks like an overreaction maybe,
Right.
but often it hooks into some old feeling of being embarrassed or ignored or not seen.
And Ina's analogy for this is brilliant, walking barefoot and stepping on something sharp.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the floor itself is suddenly dangerous, but you've got this old, tender spot. So even something small hits it and causes massive pain. That's how triggers work.
That paints such a clear picture. The present thing just reactivates the old wound. It's not about the current event size, but the sensitivity of that spot it touches.
And Evan shares his own story, feeling super defensive when a colleague just offered a simple correction on his work.
Okay.
He realized later that defensiveness, it was totally tied to this teacher who picked on him constantly as a kid. Nothing to do with the colleague now.
Wow. And recognizing that connection is so powerful. Like Ina says, these big reactions can be clues.
Clues.
Yeah, clues pointing back to what might still need some attention, some healing, seeing them as information, not just problem.
That reframing is huge. Okay, so if you start understanding where these intense feelings might come from, that leads to the next step, separating the feeling itself from your action.
Yes, this is where you really start to feel like you have some control back. Ina puts it clearly. Just because you feel angry or hurt or frustrated, it doesn't mean you have to act it out in a certain way. Like you don't have to slam the door because you're mad. You don't have to fire off that angry email.
She gives those perfect examples. Feeling angry doesn't mean slam the door. Feeling hurt doesn't require sending that 2 a.m. text you'll regret.
Right. There's always a choice in the response, even if the feeling feels overwhelming.
And the key tool, again, is that pause, right?
Exactly. Acknowledge the feeling. Sit with it a second, maybe. No judgment. Then decide consciously how to respond. Create that space between the internal feeling and the external action.
Evan really stresses that point too. Those immediate reactions feel automatic, like you can't help it, but you actually can.
You can recognize the internal storm without immediately letting it loose on everyone else.
And Ina makes such a good point about how crucial this is in high-stakes moments. Relationships, especially.
Oh, definitely. Taking that pause, maybe even stepping away and coming back calmer, it can prevent so much damage.
She says something really important. Your feelings, they're valid, always. But your actions, they leave footprints.
That's powerful. A reminder to choose actions carefully, even when feelings are intense.
And she shared that question she asks herself. Is this coming from pain or from peace?
What a great filter. That question alone could change so many interactions.
Okay, that leads perfectly into this really freeing concept. Ina and Evan discussed the let them mindset. Sounds simple maybe, but wow.
The let them mindset. Yeah, it's about reclaiming your peace by letting go of trying to control or being overly affected by what other people think or do.
Ina gives great examples. Someone didn't invite you. Let them. Someone doubts your dream. Let them. Misunderstood you.
Let them. Yeah, it's not about being passive or just not caring. It's an active choice.
You're deciding where your energy goes, right? What gets your attention. We spend so much time trying to manage perceptions or fix how others see us.
Exactly. Ina says when you finally release that need to fix everything or prove yourself to everyone, you make room for your own peace.
That sounds amazing.
Evan talks about how he used to chase closure, always needing to explain himself. But now he sees the wisdom in knowing when to just step back.
He has that line, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. It's like, okay, I don't need everyone's approval to feel okay.
Right. You don't need their okay to protect your own peace.
Evan's analogy of carrying unnecessary emotional luggage really hits home too.
Totally. We carry the weight of other people's stuff without even realizing it sometimes. Let them is like consciously putting that baggage down.
And here's an interesting twist Evan points out. When you deliberately stop reacting, just let things be, you actually hold on to your power.
How so?
Well, that silence, that stillness inside, it can be way more powerful than some angry comeback. You're not giving your energy away to the drama.
That makes sense. And Ana adds that not every argument even deserves your voice. Sometimes silence is the wisest move.
We're so conditioned, aren't we? To feel like we have to win every debate, correct every error, get the last word.
Oh, completely. Society pushes that. But Evan notes the cost trying to prove your point often costs you way more peace than you could possibly gain.
He uses that analogy trying to explain your favorite color to someone who only sees black and white.
Yeah. Exhausting. Futile, often.
Evan shared his own shift, moving away from draining text wars, trying to justify himself or change someone's mind, to just prioritizing his peace, disengaging when it becomes unproductive.
And Ana circles back. It's not apathy. It's being intentional, discerning, choosing your battles.
Right. Not every hill is worth dying on, as they say.
Exactly. So the big takeaway on Let Them is really powerful. Like, they both conclude. Choosing silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It shows you understand when things have shifted from real communication to just ego or defense. Real mastery is knowing you could jump in, but choosing not to because your peace matters more. That's strength.
So, wrapping up this deep dive on the power of not reacting, the main message is crystal clear. You do have the power to choose your response. You're not just a puppet of your emotions.
Definitely. So maybe take some time to reflect on this stuff. Think about your own life. Where do you tend to react strongly?
Yeah.
How could you maybe apply some of these ideas? Where could you practice that pause? Where might letting them bring you more peace?
And maybe here's a final thought to chew on. Think about one specific area, one relationship or situation where you constantly feel that need to react, to push back, to prove yourself.
Okay.
What might actually happen is, just as an experiment, you consciously chose to let them in that specific situation. What new space, what different energy might open up for you?